will you or will you not support retirement or taxing, proposals to tax retirement or raise revenue in order to raise revenue? It's a yes or no. So just ask a couple times. I want to make sure the community understands where you stand on this issue. Yes or no, starting with Bob.
Can you repeat it?
Yes. Do you support proposals to tax retirement in order to raise revenue?
Can I use a lifeline?
Who would you like to call?
How about Billy? No.
Okay. Councilman Berg?
The city and county cannot do that kind of a tax, and the city and county cannot implement a GE tax.
Okay.
So my answer would be no. So when you just heard that I authored to raise your GET, I gave it to the state legislature to consider. The county can't raise the tax. It would go to buses.
Thank you, Councilmember. Rep. Pine?
That's right, the bus is doing.
No.
Senator Gabbard?
No.
Dean, you're elected.
We get 1 minute?
Yes or no?
Yes or no? Do you take 1 minute to say yes or no? Then that could be an issue. But
I wouldn't support any raises in taxes.
Okay.
Because I think we're at the point of the breaking point right now. And you know what? I think our current politicians are addicted to our taxes.
okay,
You know?
Adam.
Aloha.
No, I wouldn't, and even if they were making more than $250,000 a year, they've already been taxed. So there's no reason to do it, and we're already the highest taxed state in the entire country. There's no reason to do it.
Okay, Rep. Manila.
Well, the idea of taxing the kupunas that makes over $250,000 is so we can give money to those who make less than $250,000 a year. Yes, I don't mind getting money from those that makes over $250,000 a year, so I can give it to those people that only makes $30,000.
They weren't asking for a position. They were asking for a dollar amount. They're saying proposals to tax retirement in order to raise revenue.
If anybody in the state makes a retirement money of $250,000 a year, yes.
Let's group up.
Chris?
No.
Good answer.
I'm not sure everybody saw that. This time we will start with Bob, and we're going to work this way. Do you favor having a con-con? And do you favor having term limits for legislators? You can have your hands.
I absolutely support a constitutional convention for referendum, recall, and other issues. Give the people more power. That's number one. We haven't had one since '78, and there was one voted on, and it was thwarted. The courts threw it out. They said you gotta count the blank votes as if they're no votes. That was the first time in history they ever came up with that reasoning. So if someone said I have no position, it's automatically a no. That would be number one. Number two, term limits for legislators, sure. I don't have a problem with that. Thank you.
Chris?
Well, if what Bob said is right, had one that long ago. I wasn't born yet, so that would be a no. And yeah, I don't mind having a term limit for legislators. I think it will give a chance for other people who want to serve their community a better chance to get in.
Okay. Rep. Manila?
There was a bill a couple of sessions ago about con-con, and one of the discussions, they said that the application could have that. First,
Hold it. Mike. Try that.
okay, I'll start my 2 minutes again, okay?
1 minute.
1 minute.
1 minute. Well,
1 minute, Rep.
the concerns they have with the con-con was that, of course, it's going to be very expensive. It's something like $1 million cost to the state budget, and we're already short. There was one time that the state could not pay the electricity for 4 months. 4 months, the state could not pay the electricity. So Are you going to spend $1 million having a con, or you wanna pay the electricity so we have lights on the highway? So I said, let's pay the lights on the highway.
I do support a constitutional convention, and I think the lights would stay on, they wouldn't come off. And I do support term limits.
Dean?
Okay, I support the con, and primarily because in the primary election, I have a problem with the way that our state has it set up so that we have to choose a political party first instead of the best candidate. I think that's wrong. And as far as the term limits, I support that 100%.
Okay. Senator Gabbard?
I support a con. I think it's always good in a democracy for people to have an opportunity to take a look. We haven't had one for a while. As far as term limits, I've always found it very interesting that the legislature passed term limits for county offices, for the governor, but somehow forgot to put term limits on themselves. So I would be also in favor of term limits.
Reverend Pine?
I'm strong on record to be for term limits, and I'm running for a position that thankfully has term limits, and I would also be for Concom.
Councilmember Berg?
When I got into the city council, one of the things that I was a learning experience, I introduced 2 measures to put rail on the ballot for you, because you don't want rail anymore. You don't. Every poll says you don't want it. I just said, put it on the ballot, let you decide. The reason we need a con is because it takes 2/3 to put something on the ballot. My second attempt to put rail on the ballot for you, it's your money. It's not government's money. They don't want you to decide. Something's wrong with that, right? Well, the con would do the following. The vote was 5-4. I won. I got 5 council members on my side, but I needed 6. I had a majority. If we could have a con, we could rearrange those numbers so that when a majority wants the right to vote on a measure, let the people decide. And right now, too much power is in elected people's hands, and that's the problem. Term limits, absolutely.
Thank you, Councilmember. Next question. We'll begin with Chris. This will basically be a quick one. Do you support, and if you have a thought about how you can possibly do it, you can mention that one. As a public servant, would you push for more ADA compliance, like handicap physically challenged, like in swings, jungle gyms, beaches, parks area? Would you be able to support that as an elected official? Chris?
Can you say that one more time?
As a public servant, would you be able to support more ADA compliance, like handicap physically challenged for like parks and beaches, like for swings, jungle gyms, that are more ADA compliant?
Yes, I would definitely.
Do you want a quick thought about how possibly?
No, I'll just pass on to the next one.
Rep. Davanel?
Yes.
I have a checkbook, okay? And if I look at my checkbook, I would like to buy everything that there is that I could buy, if it's only limitless. I support the con. I support taxing, not taxing the elderly or the pensioners, more parks, more this and more that, okay? I support all those. But the reality is this, can we afford it? Yes, of course. I support the putting railings for our handicap and our points. There's no question there.
Okay, thank you, Rep. Adam?
I would support it on an individual basis. If there are parks that are non-compliant right now, and there are handicapped people who are wishing to use those parks and are not able to use them and not able to function there, then obviously it's something that we need to take care of. But just to go and start, checking park by park to see if they're all compliant and spending state funds right now to do that, I wouldn't support.
Okay. Dean?
I would support any ADA compliant issues, and I think it follows the democratic principle of rule of law, You have a law that's on the books, and it's our responsibility to follow it until that law is changed.
Senator Gabbard?
Yes, I would support. I would make sure that the research was done to make sure that all the grants from the federal government are being taken advantage of, number one. And number two, I would reach out to the corporate community and ask for contributions to make it a state-private partnership.
Rep. Pine?
This is an issue very close to my heart. One of my former staffers, who was a Silver Star and a Vietnam veteran, is on the advisory board for the state to ensure that those that are disabled are always taken care of. Within reason, certainly I would support making more areas within our state or city ADA compliant. We also have to be able to afford it too, and we weigh that against getting schools for overcrowding and roads, cleaning up your parks, all have to be weighed against each other. And it is my hope that if we do have some cases that we can't afford it, I would certainly support Senator Gabbard's proposal to work with the private sector to ensure that no veteran, no disabled person is left behind.
Councilmember Berg?
We could gloss this over with some pretty words, couldn't we? But when you have a child that's handicapped, physically challenged, I dealt with it. I've had multiple hearings on it at the City Council. Maui has the greatest universal playground equipment in the state of Hawaii, and they got it done with the private sector. If we're gonna have public-private partnerships, we've gotta get government out of the way. We've gotta let the private sector have a crack at this. You could do something that the city and county will advance for $500,000 to $700,000. For instance, I think a skateboard park is almost $1 million these days. We know our developer can pour the cement for less than $100,000. Same with universal playground equipment. By the way, the universal playground equipment, one went to Miley Beach Park recently, and it's an embarrassment. What the city and county and the feds claim is ADA playground, universal playground equipment. Swings? No. It's a jungle gym bar. It really is. And it's unfortunate. In fact, there isn't even a sidewalk to go to the playground equipment. So when you want to do something, let's not talk about it. Let's put it in action, get government out of the way, and duplicate what Maui did. And just Google it and you'll see it's a beautiful structure, and it was done with the community building it.
Thank you, Councilmember. Bob?
I think what Rita said is correct. There is a limit to fiscal resources. That said, there is a framework of laws that dictate that all public accommodations need to be ADA accessible and all government accommodations. There is, as a matter of fact, there is at least one attorney in town who will go around and measure doors of restaurants and other places, and if they're not in compliance, he will file lawsuits. They'll settle out of court for $15,000 to $20,000. That's his entire practice. So I understand the sympathy working with wounded warriors, and I know a fellow who's in a wheelchair and we make accommodations for him. I get it. I think the laws are sufficient as is right now.
Thank you. Earlier during we were talking about the homeless problem. The term affordable housing was brought up. What is your true definition of affordable housing? We'll begin with Rita.
That is really a big issue. What is affordable housing? And there's definitions, federal definitions, state definitions for affordable housing. But if we apply those definitions, there is no construction company that would deal with it. That's what they say it is. Nobody would come and put a bid to it. So that's been a challenge. We hope that as we move forward, that we can build affordable housing. And I agree with Tom that if we leave it to the private sector to make bids for those, it's probably cheaper. I was able to garner a 9-classroom building for Ewa Elementary School. And the private sector says they can build it for $3.5 million. But since it's a government project, it's 9.5. So going back to the definition of affordable housing, I think at our level, government level, we cannot come up with it. We'll give the money to the private sector and they can build more affordable housing.
Thank you, Rep. Adam?
like I mentioned before, I think single resident occupancy units could help a lot, but as Rita mentioned, it's not real profitable. And that's one place where I think the PLDC could actually help, because, like I said earlier, they could lease state land out. There is some state land that's available that could actually make it affordable if they leased it at a reasonable rate to a developer that could actually make single resident occupancy for low-income people to live. Another issue that I see as far as our housing being affordable is, again, I keep going back to this, about the taxes. Rep. Cavanilla voted in the past to tax condo association fees more than they already are. That goes to make everyone's housing more expensive, because if someone's an owner, they're paying those condo fees, they're gonna pass that off to their renters. So people who don't have a lot of money and they're renting their homes are gonna end up paying more. And those are the types of taxes and fees that, like I said, get snuck in every single session without much thought, without much fanfare, but it goes little by little every single year to make our housing more expensive, especially for those people who don't have much to spend on rent or on housing.
Dave?
Yeah, when it comes to affordable housing, I look back and think about my first home. We couldn't afford a single-family home, so we ended up moving into a condo, like a townhouse, and it's a starter home. And I just don't think we have enough of those type of dwellings. But you know, they're trying to push out 88,000 more homes onto the other plane, and when we've got 28,000 vacancies. So we got some issues that we need to address as far as city and state planning for where we want to go with housing. And as far as the definition of where the line is, you know, you're going to get different opinions no matter what. You know, everybody's going to have their own definition of what affordable housing is. That's a subjective question.
Senator Gabbard?
My understanding as far as new projects is that a certain percentage of the homes have to be affordable housing. So I would make it a point that a lot of times the developers were not holding their feet to the fire, and I think we need to do that more.
Thank you. Rep. Pine?
There's so many different definitions of affordable housing, but I'll tell you what I'm working on right now with several homeless advocates. The type of housing that we're looking for permanent affordable housing rentals is $500 for a month rent for a one-bedroom and $750 a month for a two-bedroom. Right now, they are paying a small fee in the homeless shelters, and this would help them to transfer to a more permanent situation as we help them to increase their incomes.
Thank you. Councilman Berg?
Wow, we had a 3-hour debate today at the council regarding the 12 properties. We got the bachelor's quarters here on Renton Road, and we got the West Lot Village. And the city passed the measure to liquidate those properties. And there's going to be a displacement. There's a gap. And there's going to be hundreds of folks that can't keep up with a mandatory 10% raise in the rents. So what I did is, I thought out of the box. One step up housing. When the private sector says, I own ag land, growing weeds, sitting fallow, I want government out of the way. When government gets involved, at St. Franciscan Vistas here, it took 10 years with all the government monies in play. It took 10 years to bring to fruition. I don't think $250,000 is affordable to own. We have the highest rent in the nation at $1,600 a month. My one step up housing plan is less than a car payment, rent to own, and it will give dignity, 4 walls, you can bring your animals, and it will allow those who are landowners, private property owners, to dictate, to give a helping hand to people. Let's let the folks out here who want to help get a crack at this. Government has failed.
Bob?
There's a reason our rent and homes are not the same price they are in Arkansas, and that's because we're not in Arkansas. If you could rent an apartment for $250 or $300, why scores and scores of people would migrate from the mainland and stay here. We're on an island. Land is finite. That's built into this equation. And it's always going to be above the pain-hole threshold. So when people come here, they really, really got to want to stay. More housing will help a little bit, but that equilibrium will never go away.
Chris?
Okay, well, when it comes to affordable housing, honestly, that I think right now the current process is that you go through, so much of your income gets put into there's an equation that you pay so much for how much you make, and I think right now that number is fairly fair. And when it comes to building affordable housing, I think that the private sector could help us a lot in the sense that they could build it for much less. I mean, I have a lot of friends that work construction, and they love their government contracts because they get paid a lot. But then, if it's a private contract, they build everything for less. And the housing is put up faster for less money. So I think when the private sector can manage it, they keep it cleaner, keep it nicer. When you think about the state housing projects now, kind of create. I honestly think it's creating ghettos. So I think, that's my sentiments on the question.
Thank you, Chris. I think we got time for one basic more question before we have your closing remarks. There's a lot of questions that were given. This is a couple of ones where that's this one. What is your input about renewable energy? Beginning with Adam.
I think right now it's very popular to say we need to give subsidies, the government needs to pay for this research, we need to give tax breaks, and a certain amount of that is good. As far as photovoltaic goes, that's something that is more doable here in Hawaii because our utility costs are so high that it actually becomes reasonable and affordable for us to invest in that. As far as government subsidies and state funds going millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to go to renewable energy sources, research, at this time, I don't think we need to increase that because the state's got obvious budget issues that we're dealing with, and that's not really something that we need to invest in right now because at the moment it's not paying off with hundreds and thousands of new jobs. And there are a lot of other ways that the state could invest its money in order to get those jobs growing. And right now, it's not happening.
Thank you. Dean?
Aloha. I'm generally in favor of renewables, but not at the expense of tax scams that the state is reporting right now. And I'm not going to make any, try to appear to be more knowledgeable in this area than my opponent, which is the chair of the Energy Committee. But I do hold them accountable for pushing through the cable bill and the windmills when Molokai and Lanai, 80 to 90% of that population said they didn't want it, and my opponent pushed it through on the Senate floor. That's not listening to your community. That's ramming through legislation. So other than that, that's it. Hello.
Thank you. Senator Gabbard?
First of all, the cable bill that was passed simply sets up the framework for the PUC to regulate the cable if it's ever built. It does not say which island, it does not say what kind of energy. Secondly, as the chair of the Energy Environment Committee, we're spending $4 to $6 billion every year importing over 40 million barrels of oil. The reason this is stupid is because we have world-class sun, world-class wind, we have an active volcano on the Big Island, we have wave energy and ocean thermal energy. We should be tapping into these natural resources and keeping that money home here in Hawaii to help our economy.
Thanks, Senator. Rep. Pine?
I'm really proud of I'm really excited of what we've done in the legislature working with Governor Lingo, who really was the first to step up to Hawaiian Electric and say enough is enough. You must use more renewable energy by 2020. And so, as Senator Gabbard mentioned, we've increased solar, we've increased wind, even wave energy. My dear friend Cynthia Bevan just fought for that. One thing that we are working on now that we're not doing enough of is using natural gas. And right now, our Lieutenant Governor is currently working with Alaska to ensure a partnership with Hawaii to bring more natural gas to use for our energy. I just got to visit the opening of the new broiler at H Power, and they will soon be able to do more recyclable material and turn that into energy. So I'm very excited about our future. I truly believe that if we all work together, we can be almost 100% using all renewable energy and natural energy as well.
Thank you, Rep. Pine. Councilman Berg?
I'm unfortunately, when you only have one provider, one distributor, you get a monopoly. We can talk all night long about renewables. Let me give you an example. The pro-railers will tell you that this rail will run on wind and solar. Fact. It runs on 90% oil. But you're being led to believe this rail is clean and green. So don't listen to the government officials telling you that we've got a plan and we're going to XYZ date go to renewables. Because I'll tell you what, as long as you have eco in control of monopoly, you will always have, and we have the highest electricity rates in the nation, 200% over the median. And I have introduced a resolution to bust it up. I've taken the lead on the council, and I'm waiting for my measure to get heard. I also have here smart meters. Look up smart meters. This is where government's going to play big brother and monitor your electricity use. Some say that these smart meters emit a certain level of radiation and they're not healthy or safe for you and your families. But my concern is, I don't think government should monitor how much electricity you're using and then someday regulate you. Let's get HECO and break up the monopoly.
Thank you, Councilman. Bob?
Could you repeat the question again?
What is your input about renewable energy? What do you feel about renewable energy?
Well, I think it's smart when it pencils out. In fact, Tom's a witness to this. About a year ago, we made a proposal to the city to turn sludge into electricity. It's actually worked. We partnered with Parsons, a Fortune 500 company. Supercritical water oxidation. It takes the sludge, you shoot in liquid oxygen, you heat it to 700 degrees, and it has an exothermic reaction. Tim Steinberg said it was one of the few presentations that didn't violate the law of thermodynamics. But the problem here is he couldn't even consider it. We had a private investor because it was an emerging technology. And he's bound by regulations. He only has to, the government can only address proven commercial technology. That's why they're putting a 30-year-old method, a digester, out there at Sand Island. So, thank you.
Hey, Bob. Chris?
Well, yes, I am in a big support of renewable energy. I agree with Tom that it is, HECO monopolizes the island. And they're the reason why we pay so much for our electricity. I believe last year there was a bill introduced, HB 2400, I think. And that was to deregulate the island, to allow other people to come in and allow competitive rates, so that, to give us a better rate, we could charge less for our electric. And, I would be in big support of that, a measure like that. So I believe that, yes, I'm in support of renewable energy, and that, we just need to, like Senator Gabbard said, we have some of the best natural resources that we can get. Geothermal energy, wind energy, solar. If we put all of these things together, we could somewhat cut our electricity needs down quite a bit, so we don't have to import so much oil to create these.
Thank you, Chris.
Well, I don't know anybody that doesn't support renewable energy. However, I think the legislature have made a conclusion that during the Lingle administration, those subsidies were so big, so great, so huge. So you have not PV'd your house, or you haven't had solar energy, solar panels, go ahead and do so. Because in this legislative session, those subsidies will be not gone, but they will be diminished a great deal. Because now we're realizing part of the reason why our rates are so high with electricity is because HECO still have to make a lot of money. We're not paying a lot of electricity now for those people who can afford to have PVs, but they have to make up that same money, and guess who's paying it? Those people who are paying rent. Those people who cannot afford it now will have to pay that higher rent for the sake of those people who have PVs, who have dropped their rates tremendously. So I recommend you go and get your photovoltaic houses and solar panels, or else you will be stuck paying a high rent.
Thanks, Rep. Capelouto. We're gonna have, this question was just handed to me, it has to go with some of the other ones, so we'll do the quick one before we go to closing remarks. Hawaii is 47th in the nation in education. and the United States 14th in the world. What do you think needs to happen on government level to improve education in Hawaii? Also, one of the other main questions that was asked was, what can we do about James Campbell High School? Are we getting a new high school? So none of those stuff has been covered with our neighborhood board meetings. But once again, Hawaii is 47th in the nation in education in the United States, 14th in the world. I'm not sure about the statistics on the question. What do you think needs to happen in government level, on government level, to improve education in Hawaii? We'll begin with Senator Gabbard. Or Dean. Oh, Dean. Oh, sorry. Dean.
Okay, with the, our education issues, my opinion is that the Hawaii Department of Education is top-heavy. We had teachers stand up and say that for every teacher in the classroom, we have one administrator. And I don't know how many years we've been asking for an audit of the DOE, Department of Education, and that hasn't happened. So I think getting more teachers into the classroom and reducing the student-to-teacher ratio would allow our students to have more personal one-on-one time with the teachers and instructors, and I think that would result in a better quality education for our Keiki. Aloha.
Thank you. Senator Gabbard.
As a former high school teacher and college administrator and the husband of a wife who was on the State Board of Education, we got to do something. And I think one of the things that we need to do to get up from the bottom of where we are is tapping into online resources such as Khan's Academy and this concept of flipping in a classroom where our kids are into their high-tech stuff. And so there are all these lessons that are out there where they could be doing that work at home on their computers, coming in and kind of like a college class and having these discussions in class. It's a whole different concept that I think that we should be looking at. It's in bad shape now. It continues to be in bad shape. And I would also agree with my opponent that it's time to do an audit of the Department of Education to find out exactly where we are, how that money is actually being spent.
Thanks, Senator. Rep. Pine.
I don't think government is the only answer, but government can look at what we did at James Campbell High School. It really takes a community to turn a school around. It can't just be people dropping their kids off and having the teachers take care of everything. There has to be a commitment from all of us. I was so honored to be elected at the same time that my former high school teacher, Mrs. Awakuni, became the principal at Campbell High School. I sat down and I said, what are we going to do? Campbell had the highest truancy rate in the nation, high drug use, high teen pregnancy. Hardly any kids, in terms of other schools, were going to college. And we made an agreement that we're going to work hard to bring our community together. And teachers and parents, as well as the principal who worked until midnight some days. So enough is enough, and we've got a commitment from the entire community to continue the school around. And today, just this last year, James Campbell High School was named one of the most college-ready high schools in the entire nation. In just 8 years we did it together. So that is what we need to do for all of our schools. We have to stop pointing fingers, and we need to all step up and say, this is our responsibility.
Thank you, Rep. Pine. Councilman Berg.
The kids have been left behind because they deserve just a level playing field. I mean, if they can't get the test scores up, you could say, well, what's the solution here? Did the legislature cut their bus service? What kind of an attitude is that? Campbell has been in the top 10 to be air conditioned in the last 10, 15 years. In the last 4 years, the #1 school in the state on a heat abatement list out of 234 schools, #1 to be air conditioned in the last 4 years. Nobody went to bat for those kids. Nobody fought and convinced the legislature to spend $12 million to fund air conditioning. You may say there's a disconnect here, but $10 million a month are being flushed down the toilet for rail. Because there was no plan B. Lawsuit, $10 million a month of your tax dollars are being flushed down the toilet because of rail. It's called recklessness. People sometimes say Fed, city, state. But you know what? It's all our money. And those kids at James Campbell High School deserve better.
Thank you, Councilmember.
And the solution is, I do have the solution, by the way, so I'll do that in my closing remark.
Bob?
Geez, that's a question that probably require a 35 or 40-minute answer. I'd like to see how the appointed State Board of Education progresses. I think if you have people of the quality of Don Horner on there, you're moving in the right direction. I think what Mike said about the Khan Academy is correct. I think also an indicator of the school is the view from the curbside, the grounds, if you will. If it's not maintained properly, you're sending a subtle message to the kids that, well, we really don't care about you that much. If it's 50 years old and hasn't been upkept, that does send a message. Thank you.
Chris?
Well, to back to the original question, when it comes to improving education, I think, like Dean said, if our students can, our teachers can have more time per student, because our Campbell High School, Wapau High School, the schools on the Leeward side are overcrowded. And if there wasn't so many students per class, and a teacher could spend more individual time with each student, be able to have a higher quality education, and our kids would learn, will be able to learn quicker and better. Right now, last year the legislature appropriated $2.3 million for land acquisition and a study of East Kymberly High School, and another high school in this area to serve our community would help tremendously.
Thanks, Chris. Representative Manila?
Well, I'm so glad it's 10 minutes to 10 here, because I've heard so much negativism on this forum tonight. Nobody ever praised how good your government, how good the government is, how much we trust them, how wonderful the island is, and how we live our lives so great, so nice. We go to church, we love our children, it's all like la, 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 la. So anyway, to answer your question, I think that considering what we have here, we have so much diversity in the state of Hawaii. There's children coming in and out, mainly coming from the Pacific Islands, from the Philippines, from Japan. So for some reason, when you have a new student here, ISL, English as a second language, it sometimes bring down that medium that you're looking for. But if I can make a change with the Department of Education, what I would like to do is to put more money in the classroom. That's what I would like. Hawaii is number one when it comes to the number of government employees per population. And that's the same with the Department of Education. It's top heavy. So I would like to have more teachers in the classroom and smaller class sizes.
Thank you, Representative Adam?
Well, first of all, I don't think just spending more money on it is going to make a difference. The United States spends more money per student than almost any other country in the developed world, and we're towards the bottom. So I don't necessarily think that's going to solve anything. I think in the state of Hawaii, one thing we do need to look at is decentralizing, because we're the only state that has a single school board for the entire state. And we're more disconnected than any other state because we have bodies of water in between us. So that's something that I think needs to be looked at, and I do support an audit for the DOE as well. As far as the national, I think you brought up, the national education system as well. To me, the first thing that needs to be done is the teachers' unions need to lose some of the power that they have. Thank you.
Thank you, candidates. We're going to right now move to the closing remarks, but I want to make something. There were several questions that were given that were basically on, the gist of the question is, what is one of the benefits that you've either done for the Ewa community, because it's the members here, or plan to do, just the top thing. Please include those in your closing remarks. I'll give you a few extra seconds to do it as well. So you have 2 minutes and 10 seconds, however it takes number one thing you can think of. So we'll begin with from the opposite sides, and started from the beginning for the opening remarks. Bob, you have 2 minutes and 10 seconds for closing remarks.
Ready?
Go for it.
All right. Well, thanks for coming. I will be briefer than 2 minutes because I care about you. I want you to get home. I'm going to give you a gift. My website is www.votemcdermott.com, www.votemcdermott.com. All the issues that I've addressed this evening, well, maybe not all, but there's an issues page there. You can go there and find out homeless, economic development. Got this guy in the end of the seat. Homeless, economic development, and other things. I support pro-growth policies. I served 6 years in the State House. Never voted for a tax increase. And I want to see more economic development. I believe in public-private partnerships. I think we can build a new stadium with little or no taxpayer dollars. Cahey Lagoon, Cahey Marina can be revitalized in a public-private partnership. We can have more boat slips put in there. Those are big projects, and I'm not saying that I could do it myself overnight. But Governor Abercrombie has put his toe in the water a little bit on the Cahey Lagoon thing, and if he brought a project on the stadium that pencils out, I think he would entertain it. Let's see. And I'm going to make it short. I do care about education. My kids go to school right over here, 2 in Campbell, 2 over the elementary school.
Lima.
Elima. We got a lot of kids. It's tough to keep track. And the ages change every year too. So you've got 8, and then okay, you're 7, now you're 9. Okay. Anyway, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight. It's been a real treat, a blessing to have you all. Thank you guys for coming. Wasn't a whole lot of love up here in the beginning, and I can't believe we didn't get a question on rail. But thank you so very much.
That's right.
Chris, 2 minutes, 10 seconds.
Okay, well, I'd like to start by saying thank you to everyone for coming out, for listening to us, for getting to know all of us, getting to know your elected officials and also the candidates for the upcoming positions shows that you care. So that's also, well, my name is Chris Kalani Capelouto. I'm a candidate for District 40, which is from West Lock Fairways, the east side of Fort Beaver Road, all the way to the ocean, Ewa Beach Road. And I'm easily, you can tell I'm the youngest person at this table. And I'm from a different era. I grew up in the technology age, and I have a different perspective on things. I definitely think that I can bring something to our district. I can serve our community, and so I ask for your support. If you want to find out more information about me, you can go to my website, which is fromeva4eva.com, and it gives you all the things I plan to do for it, all the things I want to do for our district, my goals on the state level, and I'll just keep it short so that we can all get home as getting late.
Thank you, Chris. Representative Miller?
Thank you so much for being here. Dito to what the other speaker said. I don't think that I'm the oldest in this crowd. I think Mike Gabbard is the oldest. But I've been at the State House for the last 8 years, and I'm here to assure you that you have the best government there is. You're living in the most beautiful state, and you have everybody here with the aloha spirit. You've heard a lot of negativism tonight because a lot of people want to get elected in this table, but I assure you that in spite of that, we are beautiful people, and we love our children, and our values cannot be compared to nobody else. As far as for me, asking for re-election, I think the number one need that we have is still transportation. Even though we have worked to make it comfortable for this area, with widening of Fort Weaver Road and all the interconnection and Kapolei Parkway, we still need an egress to town. If we don't have a means, whether it be the underwater tunnel that I've been saying for the last 8 years or the rail, we need to get out of town. We still need to go to downtown Honolulu because the economic and for my neighbors in Coral Creek, they work at Waikiki. We still need downtown and Waikiki for our economic growth. Otherwise, we will remain to be isolated. The ample prediction is that without rail or without another freeway or whatever it is, the community town will be 2.5 hours. Once they build Hope Bean, you're gonna see how horrible it is to go to town. Secondly, education. As everybody knows in this state, there's a lot to be desired in education. And I think that we should work on bringing more resources in the classroom, more buildings, especially here in Ocean Point, because there's a lot of people that's moving in. We have Ewa Mackay, but we need to enlarge Ewa Mackay, and we need to have more. We have one elementary school coming up, and there's high school coming up. But I think we need more intermediate, and we cannot stop because our population is growing. But there should be more money to the classroom itself.
Thanks, Dr. Kalani.
And crime. I want to reduce crime.
Thank you. Adam?
I think I'm easily the second youngest person here at the table. And I want to thank everybody for coming out. Thanks to the board, and thanks for all the candidates for coming out. And Rep. Capelouto doesn't want us to be negative, so I'll just start by saying I am positive that if she's reelected, she will continue to raise your taxes and your fees. So I just want to end by saying that I really do appreciate. I've been going door to door as well and talking to people, and what I love about it here in Hawaii since moving here is everyone is so open. Even the people who may not support me, may vote for my opponent, they're welcoming, they have the aloha spirit, they're friendly, and they're willing to listen. So I hope that all of you have listened tonight to everybody and what everyone has to say, and you'll think about it, you'll talk about it, and you'll go home and make the right decision. Thanks.
Aloha, I'm Dean Kalani Capelouto, and I'm a 22-year Navy vet, small business owner, part Hawaiian Italian, and I've got a master's in information systems, and I'm ready and willing to lead and humbly ask for your support on November 6th. On November 7th, though, all of us are going to have to look in the mirror and ask ourselves, hey, did we do the right thing for our community? And I just want to point out that 30 days prior to an election is not the right time to send out a survey asking where your community is at on the issues. He's had 6 years. 6 years. And if you want somebody that's going to be outspoken and fight for dumping all the projects in our district, in Ewa, in Kalaloa, in Kapolei, you're going to want to support me and Tom Berg. If you want somebody that's going to stand up against the Bio Act, you're going to want to support me. If you're tired of them exploiting our prime ag lands, you're going to want to vote for me. If you believe that small businesses are the economic engine of our country, then you're going to want to vote for me. My opponent was rated last in the state for supporting small businesses, and that says something. And again, this election is not about me, whether or not I win or lose, but it's about holding our elected officials accountable, whether or not you think they failed or were they effective, and that's subjective. And that's the reason I'm here, is I'm holding our elected officials accountable. Aloha.
Senator Gabbard?
Okay, mahalo once again to the board for including me in the forum tonight. I'm not going to waste my time as far as defending myself. You can go to my website, do a comparison between the both of us to see our qualifications. As far as the Ewa issue, when I was on the city council, I was a part of I headed up the Ewa Transportation Coalition, and we were very significant in getting the Ford Weaver widened as well as Kalani Parkway, keeping that in our vision there. I was also $68 million. I worked with Senator Sparrow, and that went to Ewa Mackay Middle School, Ewa L, Ewa Beach Elementary, Ewa Elementary, as well as Campbell High School. I'm not going to use my closing remarks to toot my horn and tell you what a great guy I am. As I said earlier, you are the employer. So you get to check my qualifications and accomplishments on my website at mikegabbard.com. But I will leave you with this. There are lots of exciting things that are happening out here on the west side. And the biggest highlight of my time so far in the Senate has been working with my colleagues to help with the funding of UH West Oahu. Many of you don't realize that it was in 1966 when the legislature appropriated $300,000 for planning. 46 years later, on August 20th, classes began, and believe me, we're looking at a first-class institution that is the pride and joy of West Oahu. UH West Oahu is huge for our community because it brings higher education opportunities, needed jobs, and also it relieves our traffic congestion. So think about this. Now that the campus is open, if you live on the west side, whether it's West Oahu, North Shore, Waianae, Central, even Pearl City and Aiea, you don't have to get on you don't have to get on H1 to go into UH Manoa, right? So, and spend all that time in traffic. Meanwhile, at the legislature, I completed my 4th year as the chair of the E&E committee. Rep. Cabanilli is correct. When some people, you folks are paying $400 a month for your electric bill, and somebody who has a PD system is paying $18 a month, there's something wrong. We can do better than that. And finally, my promise to you is that if you keep me on the job and re-elect me, you will always have access to me. Whether you come to my office or you come to one of my monthly Saturday meetings or by phone, email, or snail mail, I will always respond and help you the best I can. My staff does not know what a time card is, so I'm humbly asking for your support.
Thank you, Senator. Rep. Pine?
This has been one of the most incredible campaigns I have ever been a part of. I have never seen Democrats and Republicans in a room working for one cause. I have never seen people for rail and against rail, supportive of one candidate. And I've never seen business owners and union members together in a room supporting a candidate. I want to thank all of them, all of you that are here to support me today for uniting our community to one cause, because to them, this election is not about rail for this city council seat. They're going to make that decision for their vote for mayor. This election is about ending headlines like this. This was today's paper, where the Campaign Spending Commission recommends to fine Tom Berg $28,000 for using city taxpayer-funded staff for campaign purposes. It is time that you deserve what you should have in the city council. You need a leader that represents you with honor and dignity and in the Hawaiian way with respect. You need someone that's going to work night and day for you, that you are going to be proud of. And you need someone that will lead you and never have a headline like this ever again. I went through our offices and I was so emotional because I never thought I'd ever be a politician. I was stuck on Fort River Road one day for 45 minutes, 7 days a week, and I said, I have had enough. And luckily, other residents had had enough too. And I ran for office and we won against a very strong incumbent who I respect tremendously. And our first year in office as a little freshman in the House of Representatives, thanks to our community that proved that you can take over government. We got that extra community access road called Pu'alaka'i Parkway, and thank you very much for your support on that. Waianae needs another access road. Makakilo needs another access road. This is the kind of leadership that you deserve. Government that works for you. Not a lot of hot air, just a lot of hard work and a lot of results.
Thanks, Rep. Pine. Councilmember Berg?
I'm full of hot air. I'm floating for you. I'm a hot air balloon coasting over this coastline. Let's have fun tonight. We all love one another, and no matter what happens on November 6th, we're in this together, okay? Just remember that. We'll come to terms together. So I appreciate what Rep. Pine has said. All types of ideals are coming together for a greater good. That's what it's about. Well, the accomplishments that have become us in my less than 2 years on the council, I tackled drunken driving, passed unanimously. My effectiveness and collaboration on the council is not me. It's because of the issues you helped me champion. We need a public firing range. 586 acres coming to Kailailoa, Chair of Parks. We're going to have a public firing range in Kailailoa. That passed unanimously. Historic trails in Kailailoa. That passed unanimously. Those are job creation for our backyard. So when we rattle off councilmanberg.com, which is a legislative website, it has all the resolutions, all the subject matter that we've championed together. I have held town hall meetings up and down this coastline, Kahumana Organic Farm and Cafe, Ma'o Farms, outdoors, Oneula Beach Park. When folks here said, we want to chime in on Oneula again. We don't like what the city's doing. I make sure that my public meetings, if I can film them, I'll film them. Yeah, I put on YouTube's on my website, but really what this whole election to me is about is whether or not you believe in this rail project. It's really what it's about. Buses do beat rail. There is a better way. There is a better solution for all of us. And I'm pleading with you that if you don't like my behavior, you don't like those kind of headlines, whatever it may be, it's that I provided and exposed the scandal on property acquisition. $70 million to $222 million. The public relations scandal. Everything that you're hearing about this rail, it's come from our office activities. And some people don't like it because the truth hurts. And when you can stand here before you and take it, there goes that hot air balloon. Yeah. So thank you so much, Molly.
I'd like to thank all the community members. There were a lot of questions that we would be here like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning if we had all of them. Please go on the candidates' websites, find out what